The soldiers who successfully completed their mission received praise from the commander, but no one knew that the person sitting in the car was actually the son of the leader of the largest local rebel organization. Hearing this news, the rebel leader became so enraged that he immediately shot dead the 3 messengers. After that, he summoned all the minor leaders and loudly declared that anyone who captured a spotter for the Russian bombers, dead or alive, would be rewarded with $1 million. His subordinates, upon hearing this, erupted in loud cheers. 6 months earlier, outside the Russian Maymim military base in Syria, Sergei and Sasha set foot on this land perpetually engulfed in war. At the same time they arrived, a seasoned veteran, Maxim, was also bidding farewell to his comrades. And today's story will begin with the arrival of these new recruits. Welcoming these new recruits at the base was no grand ceremony at all. Lieutenant Colonel Ivan Matyushin gathered everyone in the meeting room and got straight to the point, introducing the dangerous elements on this land and handing over all documents to everyone present. Then, he told everyone that there would be a local fluent in Russian with a clean background to coordinate actions with them. Their next mission was to infiltrate the enemy's rear, serving as eyes for the Air Force to carry out attacks. The meeting ended. Sasha went to the mess hall and met his local partner for the first time. The counterpart was an honest, simple man, and the two hit it off very well. Meanwhile, Sergei appeared rather cold towards his guide, even intentionally distancing himself from him. However, Sergei did not look down on his partner, but rather because he too had unspoken sorrows. At the same time, at a military fortress near Palmyra, the terrorist leader Maksud was sitting comfortably, his eyes fixed on 3 people being escorted in. He tilted his head slightly, and these 3 were executed right in front of Jamal, an arms dealer. It turned out that during their previous transaction, Jamal had mentioned the 3 Red Cross members captured by Maksud's son and suggested Maksud release them if he didn't intend to kill them. It wasn't exactly out of kindness, but rather he was probing Maksud's attitude. Maksud, of course, understood this intention, but for him, it had been a long time since he encountered someone so arrogant. If it weren't for the fact that Jamal was just a representative and regularly supplied him with weapons, he would have lost his temper and killed Jamal long ago. After executing the 3 Red Cross members, Maksud stood up, approached Jamal, and stared intently at him. Jamal felt a chill down his spine, wondering if he would lose his life here. The camera shifts to Sasha. In the mountains 180 kilometers east of Palmyra, Sasha and his comrade had been hiding among the rugged rocks for nearly half a day with no results. Suddenly, on Sasha's electro-optical detection device, several rebel vehicles appeared brazenly on the road. The situation here was quickly relayed back to the airbase. The roar of engines was heard as the lieutenant colonel ordered action. 2 Su-25s took off from the base, hurtling towards the target. Upon arrival, without a word, they immediately unleashed a rain of rockets. When the smoke cleared, they confirmed the target was completely obliterated. Sasha even joked with his comrade whether they were turning into demons. But anyway, having just attacked the convoy, the two did not linger, immediately packing up their equipment and continuing towards the next target. Elsewhere, Sergei's team was outside the village of San, 80 kilometers southwest of Palmyra. The two had chosen their position and were ready for combat. At the same time, in San village, Salim, Maksud's son, was leading a group of subordinates rampaging, even warning the villagers not to provide any help to the Russians, including food and water. Although the village chief stepped forward saying they didn't want to get involved in the war between the two sides, he only received a slap from Salim in response. An old man, unable to bear the oppression, stood up with a knife to resist, but was shot dead on the spot by Salim's subordinates. After pacifying the village, Salim left 3 subordinates here, then waved his hand, intending to proceed to the next village. To Salim, this area was like his backyard. Killing a few people was no big deal. But retribution came quickly. Salim had barely departed when he appeared on Sergei's electro-optical detection device. Sergei hastily reported to his superiors about the appearance of the small fish. Sitting at the base, the lieutenant colonel heard the report and thought to himself, "This is a good opportunity." He immediately dispatched 2 Su-25s carrying double the usual amount of ammunition towards Sergei's location. By the time Salim on the ground realized it, it was too late. 2 Su-25s roared overhead, unleashing a storm of bombs and bullets, this time with even more ordnance than before. Salim and his convoy were instantly blown to pieces. Not far away, Salim's subordinates heard the noise and, disregarding the situation in the village, rushed towards the explosion site. After eliminating Salim and returning to base, Sergei immediately received praise and rewards from the lieutenant colonel. While glory shone upon Sergei's team, In an underground rebel base, things were descending into chaos. Salim's 3 subordinates ran panting into the underground base, reporting Salim's tragic death to leader Maksud. Hearing the news, Maksud was stunned, unable to believe what he had just heard. Snatching a gun from someone nearby, frantically firing at the 3 subordinates before him. After calming down, Maksud summoned all the minor leaders, declaring that whoever captured a Russian eye alive, he would reward with $1 million. Hearing this, the subordinates were all overjoyed. Elsewhere, Sasha returned home and was invited to his guide's house. Although from 2 different countries, after several missions together, they had now become good friends. The guide's family was very hospitable, bringing out their best food to treat Sasha. Sasha was a bit flustered by this warm reception. After the hearty meal, the guide took Sasha for a walk in the market, but they had no idea that their every move was being watched. When the 2 people in the car confirmed the newcomer was a Russian soldier, they immediately signaled the masked woman sitting in the back to get out of the car. But she was quickly stopped by guards. Although the woman held a detonator in her hand, the real trigger was in the car. Although Sasha was quite far from the center of the explosion, he was still seriously injured, while the guide's family, all right at the center of the blast, ultimately none escaped their fate. A few days later, Sasha's wounds had almost healed, and he visited the guide's house again, but now only an old man remained in the house. The explosion had taken everything from him. Even his wife had passed away from overwhelming grief. Hearing this, Sasha was choked up, not knowing how to console the old man. Although he survived the explosion, he would forever live with self-blame and torment. The fire of anger in his heart was also about to erupt. The lieutenant colonel intended to send him home to rest for a while, but Sasha flatly refused. He asked the lieutenant colonel to quickly let him join a mission. When people saw him again, they no longer saw the enthusiastic soldier of before. Now he was haggard, even starting to grow a beard, deliberately keeping a distance from his guide. Apart from mission-related exchanges, he spoke no extra words. The pain of losing his previous comrades still lingered in his heart. Due to the large number of targets this time, air support could hardly eliminate the entire enemy, so government troops were also waiting to join this mission. The surprise attack immediately sent the rebels fleeing in disarray. The government troops then advanced to encircle and eliminate the remaining enemies. The one-sided battle quickly ended. Upon returning to the barracks, Sasha looked at Sergei and said that he finally understood why Sergei was so cold towards his guide. A few days later, Sergei and Sasha received the same mission. After arriving at the mission location, to ensure absolute safety, Sergei observed from the south and Sasha observed from the east to conveniently monitor any target movements at any time. Sure enough, after waiting not long, 4 pickup trucks appeared in Sergei's sight, moving cautiously. Once Sergei identified the target, he immediately reported the situation to headquarters. And Su-30 received the order and scrambled. Soon it arrived at the mission location and unleashed a barrage of bombs onto the 4 pickup trucks below. But strangely, this group was unlike previous ones, clearly under air attack, yet not only did they not panic, but they even immediately got up and charged towards Sergei's position. It seemed their position had been compromised. Headquarters was not without countermeasures, but because the area they were in was blockaded by Stinger missiles, backup ordnance couldn't reach their location. Therefore, an immediate order was given for Sergei and his guide to withdraw to position number 3. The lieutenant colonel also arranged for nearby government troops to provide support, but the enemy needed at least another 20 minutes to arrive. Elsewhere not far away, Maksud received news from his subordinate that the eye was trapped. He immediately stood up and ordered his subordinates to capture him alive. It turned out those 4 pickup trucks were Maksud's bait to lure out the Russian eye. At the same time, Sasha and the bearded guide had just reached the mission location due to being held up at a checkpoint. But when they looked towards Sergei in the distance, they happened to see the 2 retreating, with a group of rebels right behind them not far away. Sasha understood clearly that it was too late for them to retreat now. Sooner or later, they would be discovered. After discussing with the bearded guide, the 2 decided to take the initiative, hitting the enemy with a surprise attack, incidentally relieving the pressure on Sergei and the others. Compared to Sasha, Sergei clearly had a higher chance of survival. Although the bearded guide and Sasha were excellent shots, unfortunately, these rebels were as numerous as locusts, constantly pouring in from all directions, some even rushing the bearded guide, trying to capture him alive. Sasha's fight successfully relieved Sergei and the 2 others. As the 2 crossed the hill, they happened to meet the government troops arriving as reinforcements. Since their mission was to support the escaping Russian team, only when Sergei left would they agree to continue supporting Sasha and the 2. Hearing this, Sergei could only helplessly leave first. At this moment, Sasha and the bearded guide's bodies had reached their limits, and the enemy was very close. The bearded guide carelessly was shot down by the rebels. Sasha's ammunition had long run out, with absolutely no way back. Sasha finally shouted his coordinates to the lieutenant colonel and requested an airstrike on his position. The lieutenant colonel understood in his heart at this moment. As a Russian soldier, not becoming an enemy prisoner was his final dignity. Sasha's situation was already critical, so the lieutenant colonel, after careful consideration, finally agreed to his request. Only a fighter jet was seen flying over. Sergei looked towards the explosion, knowing in his heart that Sasha could never return. In the lieutenant colonel's command room, the lieutenant colonel also silently stood up, a fierce look flashing in his eyes, silent for a long time. At an office in Moscow, Sasha's family requested the general before them to see Sasha one last time, but was tactfully refused by the general because the general truly had no way to tell the grieving mother that her son's body could not yet be brought back. Receiving the order, the base immediately dispatched a special forces team. Initially, the covert infiltration went quite smoothly, but they didn't expect it was all a trap set by Maksud. When a civilian house next door exploded, 2 special forces members were directly thrown by the shockwave. The 2 sides suddenly erupted into conflict in the narrow village. Not only did this mission fail to retrieve Sasha's body, but it also cost 4 more special forces members. The rebels even publicly declared that if the Russians took any further action, they would destroy the nearby villages to have the villagers buried with them. The rebels' attitude completely enraged the Russian military. They recalled the retired veteran Maxim. Since it was a special operation infiltrating the enemy's rear, the fewer people, the better. Therefore, the base commander let Maxim choose anyone from the base to go on the mission with him. Maxim immediately chose Sergei. It turned out that not long before, to retaliate against the Russians, the rebels had sent a self-detonating vehicle to destroy a shooting range at the Russian Maymim military base in Syria. Since there were no heavy weapons in the yard, just as everyone was helpless against this fully armed self-detonating vehicle, Sergei stepped up and detonated the vehicle before it could ram the checkpoint, avoiding casualties. This also earned Sergei the title of crack shot in the barracks. Sergei was a bit surprised to hear Maxim choose him. Before setting off, Sergei clearly had something to say, but swallowed it down. After preparing, the 2 crawled into the back of a garbage truck. Soon, they were near the rebel area. The 2 jumped out of the garbage truck and started running towards the mission objective. Although they encountered rebels several times along the way, they were all easily dealt with by Maxim, who was seasoned in battle. However, during one night operation, although Maxim gave the order to fire, Sergei hesitated to shoot. This led to a woman witnessing her husband being killed by the rebels. Seeing her husband killed, the woman completely lost her mind, grabbing a knife and rushing at the vicious enemy. Immediately, a small commotion broke out among the rebels. Amidst the chaos, Maxim also began taking down these individuals. In the blink of an eye, the enemy was almost wiped out. Seeing this, 2 rebels could only grab 2 hostages, trying to negotiate with Maxim. Maxim pretended to politely lower his weapon, then, taking advantage of their inattention, instantly drew his pistol and shot the 2 rebels dead. After taking down the last 2 rebels, Sergei also emerged from the shadows. Seeing Sergei, Maxim flew into a rage, criticizing Sergei's actions for endangering his comrade. Only then did Sergei reveal the reason why he had faltered back at the base. It turned out that when the car bomb attacked the base, it wasn't Sergei who shot the bomb, but the truck driver who, due to trembling hands, accidentally detonated the bomb. This meant Sergei was not a crack shot. But the reason he insisted on coming here was because Sasha had sacrificed himself to save him, so he had to come. That's why he chose to keep this matter hidden. Hearing this, Maxim stopped berating Sergei and explained to him that what he actually valued was not Sergei's precise shooting skills, but his steely spirit, unfaltering in any situation. When the car bomb attacked, he alone calmly stood his ground waiting for the enemy. After some encouragement, Sergei regained his confidence and quickly matured during the mission, gradually adopting the demeanor of a veteran soldier. Early the next morning, the 2 waited for their contact in a village. Only a bearded man holding an AK was seen slowly approaching the 2. To bribe Zaid's group, the Russians had paid a heavy price. Although aware of Maxim and the others' purpose, retrieving Sasha's body was a bit troublesome, because even now they still didn't know where Sasha's body was hidden. Having no other choice, they could only find an elder to inquire. Yes, it was the father of Sasha's former comrade, Mr. Hassan. According to Hassan's account, in that battle, the last person to arrive was Maksud's brother, named Rafik, and Sasha's body was certainly in his hands too. But the prison where Rafik stayed was easy to defend and hard to attack. Everyone was momentarily unsure what to do. So Maxim and Zaid talked for a while and together devised a detailed battle plan. Zaid drove near the guard post, then bragged to the person at the post that he had captured a Russian eye. Next, while the few people were chatting happily, Maxim fired first from a distance. Seeing this, Zaid stopped pretending, turned to the person next to him and struck with a knife. The surrounding guards began attacking the group. Zaid was seen dragging a soldier out of the trench with one hand, slashing him repeatedly. Maxim from afar also began picking off the soldiers below one by one. Having just finished slashing the guard, Maxim looked up and found only one survivor under Sergei's hand, advising him to cooperate well. The person understood that his resistance was futile and could only follow Zaid's orders, completing the plan step by step. Meanwhile, Rafik, completely unaware of the impending danger, was preparing to act against the captured girl. The door was suddenly opened by a subordinate who informed Rafik that the men below had captured a Russian eye. Rafik immediately ignored the crying girl, leading his subordinates down to sea. In another development, Maxim and the others drove Rafik's flagged vehicle, swaggering through his territory. The guards high up didn't even have time to react before being shot down by them. After getting inside, the group quickly got out of the car. Zaid was responsible for the frontal assault, while Maxim and Sergei circled around to attack from behind. Zaid was seen driving the pickup truck rapidly towards the prison, frantically spraying bullets at the surrounding enemies. But unfortunately, the enemy was too numerous, and he was quickly pinned behind the vehicle, unable to move. Fortunately, Maxim and Sergei charged out from both sides. However, Maxim didn't rush to act, leaving Sergei behind, while he continued to infiltrate the enemy ranks, preparing to capture Rafik alive. Hearing the gunfire outside, Rafik, who was about to go out, immediately retreated back. At this moment, Maxim had already snuck inside. After a struggle, he discovered traces of Rafik preparing to escape through a small path. Seeing the situation was bad, Rafik grabbed a hostage, threatening Maxim to drop his weapon. Maxim pretended to surrender. Then, taking advantage of Rafik's distraction, quickly drew his gun and shot him down, then swiftly moved forward and delivered a direct punch, knocking him unconscious. After resolving everything, Maxim and the others escorted Rafik, preparing to return to the base. The commotion here quickly reached Maksud's ears. Hearing this, Maksud waved his hand, immediately gathering men and horses to prepare to rescue Rafik. As for Maxim's side, after learning Maksud's address from Rafik, Zaid, familiar with the terrain, suggested he go retrieve Sasha's body, while the others returned to the base first. Due to the urgency, they couldn't worry too much and left. But just as Maxim and the others exited the canyon, they were attacked by rebel forces. A rocket immediately overturned their lead vehicle. The road back to the base was completely blocked. Now they could only hold their ground and wait for reinforcements. A moment later, Maksud arrived with his men. However, the first thing he did upon getting out of the car was not to inquire about the situation, but to question the squad leader. He knew full well his good brother was in the vehicle, yet still dared to fire a rocket launcher at it. Without waiting for an explanation, Maksud raised his hand and fired a shot, sending the squad leader to meet his maker. Although Maksud didn't bring many men this time, they were all elites. After confirming Rafik's position, they directly fired rocket launchers towards Maxim. Maxim was also seriously injured in the explosion. He told Sergei that it was up to him now, then breathed his last. Witnessing Sergei's continuous misfortune, Rafik couldn't help but feel smug. At the same time, in the Russian base, the lieutenant colonel saw on the satellite map that fighting was ongoing here, but due to the complex canyon terrain, helicopters found it difficult to provide large-scale support. In the end, they could only dispatch someone with extensive driving experience. As for Sergei, the situation was extremely bleak. Not only was his knee hit by a bullet, but even the woman, during her resistance, was successively killed. Even Rafik tried to escape, but a woman saw it and shot Rafik dead. The situation grew increasingly desperate. After eliminating the advancing group in black, Sergei loaded the bodies of the several people onto the pickup truck and got in. At this moment, Maksud vaguely saw a vehicle approaching from behind, unsure if it was friend or foe, and suddenly a vehicle appeared in front of him as well. When he clearly saw Sergei inside and his vehicle speeding up, Maksud reacted. Isn't this a self-detonating vehicle? Just as he tried to stop the vehicle closest to him, the vehicle behind rushed forward, firing at Maksud. In an instant, only Maksud remained on the field, and this person was Zaid, who had left earlier. Soon after, the Russian helicopter arrived late. Having survived life and death, Sasha could finally return to his homeland. In another development, Zaid took Maqsud away but did not execute him, instead releasing him, because he didn't want to create enmity with Maqsud and, moreover, didn't want the region to fall into chaos once again. The movie ends here. The film is adapted from a true event, in which the prototype for Sasha was the Russian soldier Alexander Prokhorenko. The entire movie does not promote individual heroism, but is more like a war documentary. If you are interested, you can watch the original film. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching the movie. What do you think of this film? Please comment below.